Hi, it's Anthony Meisner from Land Title. Came to bring your Greater Metro Denver update for the month. We're looking back at August data here in September, and we're really seeing still that big increase in inventory, but a very interesting seasonal shift. Our highest levels of inventory this month or this year were in June. And so in July and August, we've seen a lot of listings go expired and coming off the market way seasonally earlier than usual, right? That's normally like a September behavior. And here we are with frustrated sellers early on. Now, 15% active inventory still means it's going to feel a little harder as a seller than it did last year. But those pending and under contracts really did start to come up. And I think a lot of that could be with prices settling a little bit and people more acclimating to the higher interest rates. It's finally starting to see a little bit more activity. Now, there's definitely hurdles to go along with that. So let's kind of talk through them and where they might be taking place. The active listings on the market, talking 12,000 units, higher than we've been used to seeing for a long time, but so much more so in places like Broomfield this year than they were used to seeing. Really low inventory for a very long time, but now it's starting to rise. Other places like Jefferson County, Adams County, Arapahoe County, big increases in inventory as well. Denver and Douglas County, they saw their rise in inventory a year ago, and it's just kind of hung around, right? So it's not a huge shift for them, but it is definitely different. Now, if you look at new listings per month, you can see that coupled with that seller frustration is also showing through on the new listing side. So these are new listings coming to market. So stuff coming off doesn't necessarily mean it's going back on. It means that there are less homes coming on the market this fall than there was last year. So, if we look in August was an interesting month, 400 less homes than this time last year. And you're seeing it almost across the board. Adams County was the only one with a positive number. Now, if we look at month supply of inventory by detached single family, this is interesting because detached and attached are not alike. Now, across almost every single market outside of Elbert County, 3 months of inventory, just over 3 months. NAR would tell us this is a buyer's or a seller's market, and it obviously doesn't feel that way, right? Land Title, you're seeing a lot of concessions taking place on about 60% of our deals under $1 million in the neighborhoods of 10,000. And that tells me we're probably in a much more balanced market than we are in a seller favored market. And it could be for a lot of reasons, but obviously buyer behavior has changed quite a bit and sellers are having to work with them on it. If you look at it in the attached market, this is so much different. Almost 5 months of inventory across the market. It is so buyer favored, right? You feel it and see it in the marketplace. Elbert County has 8 months of inventory. City of Denver, actual Denver County, 6.2 months of inventory. These are huge inventory numbers we're not used to seeing. So with that all being said, there's certain markets that you might still be able to get stuff sold, especially somewhere like Jefferson County where some of that attached product is still super desirable, or we've been building newer stuff that's more exciting. But it's very, very difficult. So attached, I feel for you. Detached, probably a little bit more exciting if you're a seller. Now, days in MLS, quite a bit quicker as a detached single family home too. Broomfield still the fastest at 31 days. Elbert the slowest at 66 days. But everybody else is right around that average of 44 or so. The attached market, pretty different. Everybody is way elevated. We're in the 50s and 60s across almost anywhere in the greater Denver metro area. The fastest being Jefferson County, probably because of some of that more exciting inventory that they have, but everybody else is really sluggish. So it is taking a while to get that stuff sold. If we look at average and sold by price range, the active units on the marketplace, you can see year over year, that stuff maybe that 300,000 up to 600,000, more inventory in a lot. And then you get into the luxury stuff, lots more luxury inventory in the detached single family home market as well. But solds are just kind of hanging in there, right? The coolest part is the luxury market has done remarkably well the last couple months. The 3+ million market is up 12% year over year. The 2 to 3 million market up 5%. So you're starting to see a little bit of that break loose. But when you got 600 units of inventory and we're only selling about 70 homes, it still takes a while. It's not like this is, the floodgates are breaking loose. You talk about the attached market, and anywhere from 400,000 all the way up to 1 million, we're down 20% in solds on average. It is brutal out there. So that's what's really causing a lot of this price compression. And a lot, honestly, that 500,000 to 600,000 market, along with some of the others around there, you're seeing active units come off the market. I think they're just getting rented, right? That's why there's so much coming off and getting not relisted. Now, you look at it by, detached single family again. This is month supply of inventory and days on market by price range. You can still see the lowest price stuff is still really competitive. So if you're under even 600,000, this is still a seller's market in some cases, so you can hear, oh, in this neighborhood, we got 2 offers this weekend out of our 10 showings. But then over here, you're like, well, we only got 2 showings and it's been crickets. It really is neighborhood to neighborhood specific or area specific, but the higher the price, the less buyers there are, and buyers are controlling the narrative now. So with buyers controlling that narrative, you are seeing inventory stack up the higher price ranges, and some of that's getting pulled off the market. And you can see as fast as the sales are taking place, that 30, 40 days range at the lower prices, and it just seems to keep climbing. So if you're listed appropriately by price, you probably have a better chance of getting that stuff sold fairly quickly because there's clearly buyers out there and active. It's just they are taking their time. Now, the average attached single family product in month supply of inventory and days on market, this is where it's sluggish, right? You can see it could be priced right and it could still take a while, right? So days on market at 55 on average across all of this, but you can see you can get stuff sold. And the 1 to 2 million market, we saw 45 days in MLS, even at 7 months of inventory. But it's just showing that there's so much stagnant sitting inventory. So be careful here. Just know that even at the lower price ranges, 4 months of inventory, it probably feels like a buyer's market. All right, average price. Let's talk about this a little bit. The big thing here is you can talk year over year change in most of these marketplaces. And, Adams County was up 1%. Denver County was up 2.3% year over year. Douglas, 1.6%. Those are very favorable numbers. Some of these markets are really starting to feel some of that price compression. And a place like Broomfield, when it was up so much in inventory over this time last year, it's down 2%, really not that unreasonable to believe that we've actually seen some price compression. And you're seeing that across a lot of these markets. So, we're fairly flat, but it also is very dependent on where you're located. The attached market for basically the last 2.5, 3 years has really seen just a slow and steady degrade in price. So you can see the average. It's not saying that this won't turn around, but this is supposed to be an affordability product, right? Attached market, people would prefer to live in a single family house usually. And if they can't afford it, they go here. Well, right now they're probably going to rent instead. And it looks like homes on average dropped by about $7,000 in the last year. So it's tough. It depends on where you're at, but most of the cases, Denver saw a pretty drastic price drop year over year last year. So they're probably bouncing back a little bit in some cases because a lot has come off the market. But either way, slow, steady price drops. And I think that's kind of the case there. This is always a good one to look at and talk with people about. You can see just, the market consistently year to date, we're up 3%, but month over month and year over year, we were down a little bit in August. You can kind of take that with a grain of salt, but with the interest rates being a little bit lower, maybe we have a really good September. So we're very stable. Things aren't changing until buyer behavior changes. Eventually that's bound to happen. There's a lot of studies out there showing that, consumers are getting reinterested into the real estate market, even they're acclimating to those higher interest rates. So hang in there and we'll kind of keep tabs on this. The attached market, though, this is one where every single month we've seen a drop in sales, and that's pushing those prices down even further. So year over year, we're down 9% in the attached market. I think year to date, we're down 9%. Sorry, year over year, we're down 13%. It does depend where you're at, but Denver and Broomfield are absolutely in the worst case where there's 16% drop in sales. Some of the markets, though, they're fairly more reasonable. Like look at Jefferson County. I mean, they're doing the best, but they're still dropped down 2% in total sales. Now, the last one I wanted to talk about was our percentage list price to sale or percentage sold price to list price. Now, this could be a lot worse, right? Over time, you see the seasonality in it, but we have so many concessions and we have so many price drops taking place in the marketplace that those aren't being calculated into this. But it shows here at minus 0.3% year over year that buyers are just a little more favored all the time right now because with more inventory, buyers have more to choose from and sellers are a little worse off each month. So until something changes, this is the market we're going to be in. If interest rates start to come down, you'll see buyers come out and this will all change again. But until buyers are buying more homes than sellers are listing, we could just be in a very tough situation. So if you have questions, concerns, need other market data, please reach out to me. I'm Anthony at Land Title. We'll catch you next time.